Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your Midday Market Report for Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. Just 4.5 shopping days till Christmas, 11 days left in this year, and it's 2023. Blessed and honored on our weekly trip to LA, Tuesday afternoon, 3:30, where I get to meet one of the OGs, someone that studies games and does homework, and like myself, following him now and having him on all year, following him and Chris afterward as he gets ready for a show right after us. So we're blessed and honored to have him in his weekly spot, the one and only Ron from East Sports.
Good afternoon, Jeff, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Ron. It's that time of year, as I said, behind the desk. I'm full-fledged Christmas sweater. I call it the Louis Carnesecca look.
That's excellent.
As we go through the NFL, the college ranks, we started the show last week, and we will come back to it with Deion Sanders in primetime. Coaching the Colorado Buffaloes. We had talked about transfer portals, students coming in, students leaving the building. And then the big question all week was, what would Vegas set for an under-over for wins next year? Have seen the initial number of 5.5. Thoughts on 5.5? Sounds a little steep with a team that was putrid last year. In comes primetime, Pac-12. What's your thoughts of that number?
Well, the first glance, you say, wow, that's a pretty high for a team that really was not just 12th in the Pac-12. They were 12th with a bullet in the Pac-12 because Arizona really improved. Arizona State hung tough despite all the off-field stuff and the coaching change. USC, UCLA, Utah, way above their pay grade. And same with the Pac-12 North. There are so many really good teams in that side of the ledger. So offhand, it seems a little high, but the transfer portal can switch things up in a hurry. Deion Sanders brings a lot of clout. There's coaching change again at Arizona State. We know there's going to be some changes even at UCLA in terms of some veterans leaving in the backfield, their quarterback and the running back, but they'll probably get healthy in transfer portal. 5.5 seems a little high, but the people who are going to be running to the window right now, I think, are going to be backers of Deion Sanders. I think Vegas and offshore would have anticipated they get some over money, so why not set it at 5.5, a little above what the number should be? In conference, they're going to avoid Washington, so that's one perk. They're certainly going to play the Arizona schools. They're going to play, Washington State, maybe rebuilding a little. A lot of people then entered the transfer portal. Non-conference, they host Nebraska, who's continually undergoing change, and they're going to play Colorado State. So there's a chance for a 2-1 non-conference record. There's a chance for a couple more wins. It's a little too early to get in the nitty gritty, but I'd say right now, 5-7, 4-8 would be my first choices.
It's so funny you brought up Nebraska. For the millennials watching, they're like, okay, Colorado, Nebraska. You didn't understand back in the day. That was must-watch TV. That was your day after Thanksgiving. That was your 2:30 start, and those were the good old days, Ron.
Yeah, those were the good old days. And I think if Nebraska would not have left for the Big Ten, I think Colorado wouldn't have left for the Pac-12, because I think those two teams were joined enough that they would have stuck it out together.
TJ saying too early, too early. It's never too early, TJ. They all cash the same, whether it's in December, January, or next December. So remember that. So, why do people make bets that early and tie up capital for so long? Because here's what happens, TJ, and this is a real big note and a note to take to heart. We're not telling anyone to run to the window and flock and drop down 5, 10, 20 dimes. Someone that's a quarter, $half player, even if you have a short credit limit, lots of times what I suggest to people, and a lot of people do, is they have two accounts. They have their weekly account that they settle up, and then they'll have another account where they can put these futures together. Or if you were in Vegas for the weekend, or someone like Ron that goes to Vegas 3, 4, 5 times a year, like myself or whatever, this could be one just to add to your portfolio. You put it on the desk, you set it and forget it. For me, if I was in Vegas and I saw that number, I'd be betting the under 5.5 right now. Not that I disrespect prime time or what he's going to do. As Ron, I think, clearly stated, I think that number was set at that number for a reason, because everyone's going to run to the window to take that over. Where if it was 4.5, probably what the number should be, then you'd get a little a little more two-way action. Correct, Ron?
That would be true. 4.5, they would have been, if you had 4.5, you probably have an 80-20 split to the over. And
Okay.
So that would put Vegas in an early liability. I don't think they want to be that way 10 months before the start of the next season, kind of thing. As far as taking futures early, this is for TJ. Lines move faster than they ever have now, with all the different options, with all the states having sports gambling. I wouldn't necessarily be betting over-unders now, but before the draft, when I'm doing a lot of draft analysis and draft prep, I'm taking some numbers, especially in the NFL early. The Bears were set at 7 early. The Falcons were set at 6 early. The Houston Texans were set at 5, even in one place at 5.5. Those numbers were going to dry up as soon as you saw where they were in relation to the rest of the teams. So I'm taking a lot of futures in April and May. I know that sits your money for a while, but I look at it as an investment. What are the chances that the team is going to win 8 games, 7 games, 6 games, and so on? Do I think that it's a return on investment that's over 10 or 15%? If so, that's where I want my money to rest for the next 6, 7, 8 months.
Question on that: if you got a number, let's just say I'll use a number of 4.5 or 5, and then let's say they make a big trade and they bring in a star quarterback and a star wide receiver, and that 5 goes to a 7 or even a 7.5. And I know this is all fictitious. Do you now bounce back immediately and try to get that initial middle and say, hey, I got over 4.5, and now they're setting it at 7. I got a huge actual middle here. Let's see what we can do with that.
If it's that big a jump, I would definitely consider it. And it is hypothetical, but it did happen 2.5 years ago with Tom Brady. Tampa's number was set at a particular price before Brady signed with Tampa Bay. I actually had liked Tampa because of the metrics. It had nothing to do with Brady. I was completely disappointed that they signed Brady because I wanted the lower number. I thought Winston and company would get some stuff done because I liked the rest of the makeup of the team. That number jumped from, I think, 7.5 as high as 10, 10.5, one of those rare moves. And so the other thing is you try to catch slow moving books, the ones that aren't moving as fast as others. So I doubled down on my position at over 7.5 with the intention of hedging on Tom Brady later on, which worked out really well because it wasn't until after their late bye week that the chemistry worked for that team. But I'm sometimes taking numbers because I have formed an opinion, and there are sometimes I'm taking numbers on speculation.
We talked about the early bowls. The season has not been that exciting as we speak. San Jose jumps out to a quick 7-0 lead over Emu. The game tonight, Toledo and Liberty. Currently, as we speak, Toledo 3 and a hook with a 51.5. There is 152 at Circa. with Mr. Benson and Mr. Metcalf there. Tomorrow, South Alabama, Western Kentucky. We have an Air Force Baylor game on the 22nd. 23rd, Houston versus Lafayette, Wake Forest, Missouri. The reason I'm saying this on Christmas Eve, Middle Tennessee State, San Diego State. Stop me when something piques your interest. I mean, I don't see anything.
It's pretty rough out there with the early bowls. There's so many moving parts. We've had opt-outs at the very last minute in some games. So you don't have all the parts, who's going to start at quarterback. We've had leading sackers exit the game. I'm trying to handicap it a certain way. I'm usually involved in the early bowl games a lot more than I have been. I don't even know what incarnate word means, but it's a university, and it's been my biggest play of the year so far because I run a simulation program that is pretty accurate when I can get accurate information about who's playing and who's not and compare it to my metrics. I form an opinion and then I run the simulation after. The simulation has only been able to give me some data in 2 games, the Troy game, which worked out well, and Incarnate Word. It made this a 3-point game. And at one point you could get 9.5, 10. And it worked out. It's really worked out for those games. And those are the 2 that worked out the best. I had a losing ticket. This is true confession. I really didn't want to play Florida, but I played Florida because I just thought they would be able to run on Oregon State. I played it as small as I could possibly do because as an alumnus of Oregon State, I didn't want to root against my team. And then I run the simulation and Oregon State boat raced them in the simulation 39-7. And I said, whoa, wait a second. I didn't see that coming at all. Apparently either did Florida. It's really dangerous to take teams that have lost a lot of players. Oregon, I think last year against Oklahoma, about 10, 12 opt-outs. Florida a couple years ago when they played, and last year when they played USF, which was a prime spot for USF. And now Florida again loses all these players and they just couldn't compete with Oregon State. There's just too many moving parts. I don't know what gets a team excited. What gets Houston excited to play somebody that's not a Power 5 team, for example? The numbers go up and down. Memphis, Utah State. Memphis wants to be one of the big boys, but they're playing one of the small boys instead. What gets them motivated? What gets Cincinnati motivated against Louisville, and Louisville vice versa? How could you handicap that game with coaches and players out? It's very tight. I think we'll have some games later in the bowl season that I'm excited about. It's just right now I haven't been able to find an edge.
We had 2 weeks ago the over 77 in the Incarnate Word Friday night football game where there was 129 points scored. Last Friday we had the under, and we just snuck the under in the Incarnate Word game. Moving forward, some of our guests that have been on here, one of the games I'm getting a lot of rumblings is Tulane over Notre Dame. Now on paper, it doesn't look like people would scratch your head. The average Joe walks up to the book to bet Notre Dame. Obviously, they're like, Tulane. I mean, what are you guys talking about here? And obviously, people sitting out, coaches already talking about recruiting. What do you have in your power rankings on that game?
Well, I don't know which game, because Tulane is USC, Notre Dame is South Carolina. So,
excuse me, correct. So I want you to talk about both those games because South Carolina and Tulane are the pros versus Joe's sides. What I'm hearing.
Yeah. Those 2 games interest me, and I haven't written them up at all. I haven't simulated. So this is speculation on my part. I'm going to hopefully find a way to like Notre Dame in the South Carolina game. Primarily because I think Notre Dame is defensively sound, where South Carolina snuck up on a team last year, which was an incredible situation for me last year. I don't think they sneak up on Notre Dame's defense this year. I know Notre Dame's quarterback is out. He played 1 year. However, there's rumblings that their original quarterback, who missed the start of the year with injury, might be playing in this game. He might be rusty, but he would have won the job anyway. There's a lot of groundwork I need to do on that game. I still need to do a lot of opt-out information, but line of scrimmage data really favors Notre Dame in this game. What did at full strength, I would have made the line 7, and I did make the line 7. I made the line when the bowl pairings were announced. So I kind of made them without regard to who might opt out and so on. I wouldn't make the line 7 anymore with the quarterback out and maybe some others. But that's my general feeling, is a lean to Notre Dame. As far as the Tulane USC game, I saw that the line was awfully low according to my numbers. I knew the quarterback was hurt. Would he play? Would he not play? I immediately took USC at Pick'em in that game because I didn't see any way that USC would be able to stay at that number. Now, do I like USC in this game? Absolutely not, actually. I would prefer to have Tulane if they can rise to a 3 above. I'll be hedging it no matter what once I do the work. Tulane is I hate to say this to people who like Tulane. I mean, I like Tulane, but they're a lower class team in terms of where they come from and what their pedigree is compared to USC. So can they play with a big boy is a really big question. I don't know if they can stop USC with Caleb Williams, who I expect to play. So I'm going to have to do a deeper dive on this game, but I expect the line to rise if Caleb Williams is really going to be playing. Excuse me for just a second here because I need to plug this computer in or I'm going to lose you. So keep talking. I'm right here. I could plug it in right here.
The last game that I'll have you just take a quick look at is the Utah and Penn State. That's a game where Penn State's been real good to us all year. Utah has also been good to us, but it's I have a hard time getting off of Utah here. I didn't think the number was that bad at all. I'm interested in what you see with your numbers, your homework, and is the number initially looked like a fair number?
The initial number did not look fair at all to me, and the number doesn't look fair at Utah, which was sitting at -3. It might be 2.5 now, but it was sitting at -3. My power ratings would flip. I made Penn State a small favorite in this game.
Okay.
The problem I have with this game is that they're playing each other. I like Penn State in bowl situations, and I love Utah in bowl situations. I think they're both well coached. Utah's gets a little bit more of an edge to me. Utah wanted to be in this Rose Bowl game so badly because it was a bitter taste last year when they lost the big lead to a powerful Ohio State team. So I like Utah from that standpoint. My numbers come out when I set the number of Penn State 1.5. The rush data also set it at 1.5. So I expected to have absolutely no play in this game. But when I was able to get Penn State +3, I had to pull the trigger there. Now, since then, I know there's been some opt-outs, so I have to watch that a little bit closely. I think Utah has one and Penn State has a key one. I haven't done any deeper of a dive because I already have my +3. But believe me, I'm going to be doing a deeper dive because I don't know if I want to have a big situation on Penn State against a well-coached Utah team. It's really, I think based on my power ratings, Utah shouldn't be a favorite. I understand how it would be not necessarily 2, 3, or whatever the number should be because of the circumstances. But I think 3 points, I just had to pull the trigger.
Crazy week in the NFL, which, I should just have a recording and just hit it and then save the breath of fresh air. It's the NFL, not for long, any given Sunday, whatever you want to call it. Some from Thursday where the whole world was on Seattle because why? Brock's first road game, public trendy dog Seattle, and Brock is a Brock star. 49er defense rolls. Saturday, 33-0 Matt Ryan, the biggest comeback in history. Here come the Vikings. The watching paint dry game Deshaun Watson's first game as a Cleveland Brown quarterback. They sneak by the Lamarless Jackson Ravens. And then the granddaddy of them all, I thought, and again, I always talk about people remember what they saw last. If Tua couldn't throw a 15-yard out in sunny LA the week before, how's he going to throw a cement ball with snowballs coming at him in Buffalo? And that was the best game of the day, other than the comeback, obviously. Start from the weekend. Anything surprise you there? I mean, the comeback was the comeback. Were you surprised at Miami? Were you surprised anywhere on the weekend?
I came away with the Miami Buffalo game as being more impressed with Miami than Buffalo. And I had Buffalo was in an unbelievable situation. Miami going West Coast to East Coast, third straight road game, short week compared to Buffalo. Everything stacked in Buffalo's favor, including the revenge from the game where they had oxygen with the humidity and everything like that. And still, they almost covered. Cleveland went according to plan to me. I had mentioned, probably with you, but certainly with Chris, that I thought Deshaun Watson got more than enough reps the week before to get back in rhythm. Now, 13 points is just 13 points. That's not a lot, but Baltimore was nowhere to be seen in that game. That was my parlay. I don't like to do money line parlays. I like to do more straight betting. But I didn't trust Buffalo, believe it or not, still at the 7 points. So I went Cleveland, Buffalo parlay. I actually had a lot of stuff tied up with Cleveland. I was one of the guys who had Seattle. That was my weakest moment of the time. I thought Seattle would rise to the occasion with the short week, with Purdy having some injury concern. It wasn't so much that it was his first road start, as that he had to come back on short rest with limited practice against a Seattle team that played San Francisco each and every year and knew what they were getting into. So I missed on that game. Boy, no lead is safe in the NFL. There's no question about that. My proudest moment was all these crazy games, the New England game, the Indy game, some of these other crazy games I had no action in. So my heart was at a very nice resting point. For most, I said, oh, that's a tough game or whatever. That's nice. I'm sitting here with the Bears because that was a big game for me. I'm sitting there with Atlanta when the spread just went crazy. Why was New Orleans favored by that many? They never cover that many in a New Orleans-Atlanta game. The metrics were off. So I'm happy to have not have my blood pressure go up in those moments.
Yeah, we do our Sunday action parlay. We dabble usually in a college hoop game at this time of year with an NHL game and one NFL game. We took the Titans up to 4.5 in 2 spots, and then we had them in the money line as well. I thought they had a good opportunity to potentially pull off the win. Obviously, Tannehill got hurt early there, limped back in. Missed field goal late in the fourth quarter after a sack kind of turned the tides. Happy to move on. We did cash on the parlay there. As the day progressed and the final results and the guns blew, how's your futures looking?
Futures were really good. I actually had Tennessee +3 in that game, so I pushed that particular game, but is happy that Tennessee lost for the futures. I was hoping for a New York Giant Washington tie. Almost could have almost had another one, but because I had both, so I lost my future with the New York Giants. But that was expected. I mean, a great coaching job. Hats off to them. No problem with that. But my Washington one is alive and well. Houston cashed a long time ago. Some of the other ones, Tampa cashed a long time ago. Vegas stayed alive. I'm sitting at 9, so if they win out, I'll get a push instead of a tie. Baltimore, I talked about this with Chris, and this needs to be said on every show. If you bet futures, you have to compartmentalize. You can't think about what you have in season wins. You can hedge and stuff in the last week or two or something. But in week 14, week 15, you can't think about it. I really like Cleveland. I understood that I wanted Baltimore to win the division, but that's besides the point. It's what I think this week is going to happen. So you have to compartmentalize that. Even though I would have preferred Baltimore to win, Cleveland was the right side in that particular game. Nothing else really on the futures. Everything else status quo.
I fielded a lot of questions on Sunday. A lot of people asking about the Bucks, about the spread and the money line, and I was like, Vegas said it exactly for this reason, because you guys are asking me the question. I can get Tom Brady plus 165 on the money line. Are you kidding me? I already got him at 3.5. I mean, they're giving me plus. I'm like, it's there for a reason. And sure enough, at 17-0, you wouldn't believe the DMs and emails. I told you, I know. Well,
Yeah.
those guys didn't send a I'm sorry or you were right, nothing like that. So I'm here if anyone's watching or listening that wants to, send that Christmas card. My question to you, Ron, is it's the same spread. It's the same money line. I have said now for weeks, and I'll say it again. I think right now, in form, the Bengals are the best team in the AFC. And I know they still will probably have to go to Buffalo. I know they'll probably have to beat Kansas City again. The Patriots coming off 1975, my first wager, fifth grade, 12 years old. I've been in these lanes for over 35, 40 years. I have seen it all. I've witnessed it all. I've heard it all. I've never seen a game end like that in my life.
Yeah.
Maybe the laterals when you're down. I get not when you're tied and about to go to overtime. Patriots stayed in Arizona for the first game, go to Vegas, come back home, short week, Christmas Eve. The spread's only 3. It opened at 3. It's 3.5. It only can go one way. The money line, Bengals minus 190, Patriots plus 160. Is there any way it smells like a trap to me? I'm not telling people to take the Patriots. I'm not. But this game is starting to smell to me, Ron. Tell me I'm wrong. This is Bengals, Bengals, and more Bengals.
Don't really have a major opinion on this because this is all about what's between the eyes, what's in the head. How does New England react to this? That's adversity at the 110th decibel level or whatever it is. It's a veteran coach. You could see he was just in shock at the end of the game. The players knew they made it. I mean, there was something going on there, but even before then, they were up 7 and they gave up a TD pass with something like 30 seconds to go. So this game could have been over without all the drama that we saw at the end of that game. How do players respond? How do coaches respond to get back to that? Because they may miss the playoffs based on that one play or that sequence of plays where they allowed the game to be tied and so on. In fact, why didn't Vegas go for 2 at that particular time when they tied the game? Because that's a kind of a thing that we've seen them do before. Maybe it was circumstance and New England's a good defensive team and they didn't want to do it. Maybe they would have gone in. I mean, we can all speculate as to why or why not they didn't do that, but it worked out good for them. It's hard to get a handle of this game without thinking about the psychology of the game because this all rests with New England. They may be down 14-0 in the first quarter because they haven't forgotten about this past weekend.
And I thought for sure, as soon as they called it a touchdown, he was going to go for 2. I think the fact that it took 3, 4, 5 minutes to figure out was his foot in or not might have said, you know what, there's only 30 seconds. The Pats offense hasn't done anything. Let's take our chances and we'll take it to overtime. Or we know Jacoby Myers is going to pitch it back to, and he's going to go to the house there. This week's card moving forward, you talk about this time of year, teams moving up, moving down. We now have the Jalen Hurts injury where an opening number of 1.5 gone to 3, now to 6, back to 5.5. I'm seeing right now 5 in a couple spots with Gardner Minshew obviously going to be the starting quarterback for the Eagles. Raiders travel to Pittsburgh. Then there's 3 games on Christmas Day: Packers, Dolphins, Denver Rams. My question to you is, as these seedings are starting to move a little, set up, Jags in the AFC, Lions in the NFC. Give me your breakdown on what you're seeing.
Well, I still think there's an edge for the teams ahead of the Lions right now, but there's no question that the margin has really gotten smaller. Uh, that was a big win for the New York Giants because I thought they would be the more vulnerable team between the Giants and Washington. So Detroit still is going to need to win. Let's see, they're 7-7 right now, if I'm correct. So they're going to need to win at least 2 out of the last 3. And they're playing like they can do it, that's for sure. Nice win against the Jets on the road. And now the Lions they're going to Carolina. I guess that's a song, but it's also that they're going to Carolina. So with apologies to James Taylor, that's an interesting game. And it's not in the Detroit win column automatically. Sam Darnold has played error-free football, primarily because they're not risking anything with him, which is dumbing down the offense. How does Washington bounce back? They have a tough one at San Francisco. So after this week, we could see a flip in the standings. If Detroit wins, then Green Bay has a chance, an opportunity this week. They have a tough one at Miami. So you could see Detroit in that 7th spot, at least temporarily after this. But I don't think the race is over. I think that, like the NFL predicted when they added this 7th playoff spot, the races are going to come down to the wire. Just think of it, if we only had 6 playoff spots, we'd be almost done talking about the playoffs in the NFC and in the AFC. But now we've got 5 or 6 extra teams involved.
In your AFC power rankings, you still have Buffalo, KC, Cincinnati?
Yeah. KC and Cincinnati are virtually dead even. I still have Buffalo a little bit ahead of them. It's not a reflection of the fact that any one of those 3 teams could win. It's just that's where they are right now. Buffalo's defense is holding them back right now. Again, I was more impressed with Miami. I don't think in those kinds of weather conditions with that kind of rest differential that Buffalo should have allowed 29 points to Miami. So I think we've got a problem there. We know that Kansas City has 2 problems. One problem is a penalty problem. They can't get out of their own way in terms of jumping the gun on snaps and other defensive miscues that they're famous for. And the other is a problem when they face a star running back. They still can't get off the field at times. And the more they get off the field, the more Mahomes would get in rhythm. And really, Cincinnati's only problem right now is that Burrow has to overcome the offensive line, which hasn't gelled to where we thought they might be. But even then, it's not that talented to begin with. It's an upgrade over last year, maybe a massive upgrade over last year, but it's not a great offensive line by any means. But Joe Burrow has that ability to rise above it. All 3 have areas, 1 area of weakness and about 5 areas of strength, and it's a toss-up.
NFC, Jalen goes down, but again, the 3 games left, 1 win by them, a loss by Minnesota. They're basically set with the 1 seed there. Listening to some of the experts this week, Brock Purdy can make every throw that Jimmy G can. So obviously the lack of experience in the playoffs for some of these experts, it's not a problem. Don't worry about it. Well, to me, I know they have the best defense right now in the NFL. They can win on the road. I really trust their coaching staff. It's still at number 2. Who do you have at 3 and 4? And what do you see moving forward as we speak week to week in the NFC?
Oh boy. I mean, I could go out on a limb and make a very unpopular decision here. And I think San Francisco is the best team power rated wise. It's an unbelievable defense. It's a well-coached defense. You still have 2 problems. Brock Purdy, can he put up points against the best teams in the NFL in playoff time? And will Kyle Shanahan get in his own way at that time? Philadelphia, teams can run on them, but teams choose not to for whatever reason. If I had the guts, I would say Dallas is the best team, the best chance to make it out of the NFC, which would be an extremely unpopular position. And I wouldn't make that. I'm saying it out loud to you and anybody who's listening. But I don't think I back it up with money because Mike McCarthy is a liability in playoff games as well. But on paper, this is a really varied team that gets a lot out of its offense. Dak occasionally throws in a poor game, but they have a lot of good parts. They're getting healthier on the offensive line. Pollard brings a different dimension. Ezekiel Elliott runs straight ahead and powers through. Schultz is a fine tight end. CeeDee Lamb is a good wide receiver. They stuff the run enough that they force you to pass. They rush the passer. There's, them and Philly are the top two in quarterback sacks. There's a lot going on there, but survival of the fittest. Let's see who's the healthiest come playoff time. Anything can happen in the NFC.
Got a couple seconds left. What I like to do to end the show here is throw the soft little lob to you. Any closing thoughts, any certain topics that you want to close out here with, and to everyone that's watching and listening, or that will be downloading our show after?
Well, yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I think there will be patient with the bowl games. Let's go back to the NCAA. There are going to be some good matchups, and I think there's going to be some opinions that I'm going to be having, but we're probably a week off from that, unfortunately. So just be patient, see what's going on here. But again, look at these kinds of things. We haven't seen moneyline dogs so much in the NCAA bowl games so far. Just a word to the wise. Bowl moneyline dogs do cash in NCAA bowl games. Just take a look at it in certain matchups, because I think we'll start to see that a little bit more. My closing thoughts in the NFL, still, if a team is 6-8, like a Green Bay, if a team is, 5-9, like everybody is in the NFC South, Carolina, Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa is 6-8. Remember that they all have flaws. They're beatable at any time. If you see them in a role of a favorite, don't go, taking money out of the bank and just throwing it on them as a favorite. Look for reasons to back the dog in games where these teams haven't performed that well during the season. What makes you think they're going to perform that well moving forward? I always think the best strategy is first look and make a case for the dog. If you can't make a case for the dog, then turn around and look in other directions. The NFL, as you said, as we've talked about in this show, no lead is safe. So if no lead is safe, that makes the underdogs alive.
Ron, I can't say it any better, especially what you talked about in the bowl games. I mean, I think we're at that time of year. We're getting close to Christmas, and then the last week of 2022, people sees a list this long of all these bowl games, and they start to really come up on you. But as you said, just because they're there, study long, study wrong. We're looking for a reason to jump to this team. As you came on, it was San Jose State 13-0. Well, it's 13-9 now. Safety and a touchdown. So, we just don't know. And if I always say you don't have to force the action. There's always a game on later or the next day. So as you said, I couldn't have said it any better. So I want to personally thank you. I want to wish you and your family a very, very Merry Christmas, and enjoy the family time next Tuesday at this time, the last week of 2022. If you're available and not traveling, we'll do whatever bowl games are left, and we'll go over what happened in the NFL last week and what's coming up the following week.
Yeah, I want to wish everybody happy holidays as well, Jeff. Happy holidays, and enjoy the time. Compartmentalize, juggle everything, have fun, smile. May not be around for next Tuesday's show. Got a lot of family coming in, but we'll catch up again the first of the year, and there'll be a lot to talk about then.
From myself, Jeff Dawson at DC Sports Invest, from Ron at Ron A Sports, we wish everyone a very, very Merry Christmas. Have a safe holiday here with this show. We will catch you in the new year, 2023 it will be. And then until then, behave, stay in your lanes, and we'll see you soon.